it comes down to coming together first off, well, just within yourself and checking yourself on the things you spend your money on. And when you have people around you that have a certain amount of money, as much as you do, even if we're not all making a certain amount of money or making a lot of money, we all can come together with our own funds and start funding, because we have, 4 more years or 3.5 years until Obama's presidency is up.
Yeah.
So after that, no one's thinking the aftermath. You got to look at, the white community always thinks the aftermath of each politician as it leaves. You know, we're always the person that is, or the group that is always catching, the short end of the stick, because we're very, how can I put this? We're very politically ignorant on a lot of levels. So when a president is about to leave, we're just ready to vote for whoever. We're not thinking of, okay, how do we get our demands met on any level? And financially, you got to realize politicians have always dealt with finances from his people, all the way from FDR on down to now, from FDR to Lyndon B. Johnson to Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, Bush, Clinton. All these presidents were invested into from the middle class whites to the rich, because in their minds, if I invest a certain amount of money into you, then you're going to be working for my interest. It's like, the word interest and interest means the same thing. My interest, I put my interest into you because I feel like my interest is going to be met. And that is a strategy or a political strategy, again, that has been working for the middle class and the rich for years. That's why when you see gentrification go on, gentrification is nothing but a group of people that came together and decided to take over a whole land, because the politically ignorant choose to not vote against these situations, and then secondly, not come together financially to take that place over that they're already sitting on. That's why you can go into places in Houston like 3rd Ward, 5th Ward, Southwest, parts of the south side of Houston, and see gentrification taking place, because there's no well-off blacks coming together with their funds taking over these specific areas. And this can happen. There's no reason why these well-off blacks could not have come together and stop gentrification from taking place. That's reality. There's no excuse. There's no excuse for that.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And another thing too is that we don't really see, like, for example, when we're talking about we're trying to be business oriented, I noticed that a lot of us really are not business oriented. Like, I can ask you, if we had, let's say all of us had, let's say $50,000, amongst ourselves, that's good enough to start ourselves a little small business. Now, the problem is, what business can arise in the black community? I'm noticing, everybody is always going to the status business, like, jewelry, clothes, hair salons and everything. But I always sit here and ask people, what really do black people are spending, and why are they spending it on? The first one I can think about is food. Like right now, each black community, you have a lot of Korean, Vietnamese people owning businesses there, and you have Timmy Chan's everywhere. Now, I know we're saying they're in a fried business market, but think about it. Why are businesses like that prospering in the black community? Do you know how many Asian children have we put through school? We have put their generation ton to school. We're the number one consumers. That's another thing about blacks. We actually are helping the economy because we are very much spending people. And I'm not saying that we should stoop down to a status level, but we definitely need to get in control of what blacks are spending. So we literally need to know ourselves, and then we need to go out there and say, how can we get these blacks to start buying from us, their own people, instead of buying from somebody else. Now, the number one thing I sit here and say, we should not use the, hey, bro, I'm black, you black, buy from us, because at the end of the day, they don't give a care. So we need something else business-wise, economically-wise, that they're going to come to us for. And eventually we can at least hold those markets. Not saying we're saying it's going to stop everything else, but if we can hold those markets, we guarantee that we are putting one foot forward on taking back our community. Mm-hmm. So I think we all need to come together and have a legitimate plan. We need to start using that part of our mind, and we need to start actually reading books. I don't even care who it's about. If these ideas are working, we need to start doing that. Right. We need to start being business people as well.
I agree. I think we should look at, for one thing, what is the one thing that would stifle this economic system now? What is the one thing we can do to stifle their system? One thing we could do to stifle this. No, I'm about to say it. The one thing we could do to stifle their system is to not feed the machine. And I'm talking about a machine. I mean, like, what is the things that, let's say a person gets a paycheck. This is, hypothetically speaking, the person gets a paycheck and they pay their rent and their bills. Bam, there you go. After that, you have what's called residual income left. There's something that's left after that is residual income. And after that, you decide on where you go to spend your money for your clothes or your toiletries and your food. Number one is the food. Where do we go in our mind subconsciously to spend our money on our food and our toiletries? Automatically, in this society where we live in, we're going to go automatically to Walmart. Right. Automatic. That's just an automatic, covert, subconscious action. Okay. I don't care.
You're lazy.
Right. You know what I'm saying? If you're lazy, or if even fast food, before I even get into that subject, the first thing we can do if we get into our mental is we're very much now become like patterned people now. Like my mom, like my father said years ago, we aspire to be different than other human beings because European scientists for years have said that human beings follow a certain pattern. And that's incorrect because we all aspire to be different than each other. Now, the beast himself has devised a way over the years to make everyone dependent upon his system. And within his system, you have what's called stores. Just to put it into a simple, basic mentality is stores. Stores that if I go outside, let's say, for example, I'm sitting here like, man, I'm hungry, man. I want to get some meat. All right, let's go to BAM. Automatically, you think, let's go to X. And X meaning store. Let's go X meaning Walmart, or X meaning Fiesta, or X meaning Pathmark, or X meaning, etc. X means a specific place that we've been going to over the years. So imagine if we said to ourselves, you know what, I'm not going to shop there anymore. I'm just going to not go to Walmart anymore. Mentally, the average Nubian in his mind is thinking to himself, damn, if I don't go there no more, I'm going to starve. I have no other option. So mentally in our minds, we are dependent upon the system of the beast. That's reality. If I said to myself right now, just me personally, if I said to myself right now, because I'm now more into a fruit and vegetable diet. If I said, all right, I'm not going to Walmart for fruit and vegetable diet, I know exactly where I can go for an alternative. I know where to go. But the average Nubian does not know where to go. If they was just to shut down the local Walmart right now, the average Nubian would not know where to go. He would be afraid. If they were to shut down Fiesta in the neighborhoods, a local supermarket, they would not know exactly where to go. They would be scared. Okay? If let's say this actually happened in our community. Let's just say this happened. They shut down Walmart, they shut down Fiesta, and wherever else that we go. We would not know where to go. The first thing we would need is direction. The problem is when we try to get direction, mentally, the first people we listen to are our enemy. Okay? If a community, let's say in our community we have what's called Shea Community Center, and the leader of that is the Lord Parker. If he came out and said, you know what, I got y'all, I know where we can go. He's not just talking to the Pan-African group. He's talking to all Nubians, all Africans of African descent. If he talked to them in the ghettos, the middle class, he's talking to them as a group. Imagine this. All of us in a group, in a group setting, had nothing to do with financial status, social status, tax bracket. We just all together in the same bucket. And he made that statement. There will be a lot of them that would disagree with him, that would not listen to anything he had to say. That's the founding point of how the system is set up, because we don't trust ourselves, we don't trust our own word. We don't trust, if I said to you, don't worry about it, bro, it's going to be all right, I know exactly where we can go. Mentally, we're like, man, look, I'm used to going to Walmart, I ain't finna go to you. It's like talking to a sister about letting go of the lace front wig. Same effect. It's the same effect. If I'm talking to, let's say, I'm gonna give you a quick scenario one more time before I go back to that scenario. If I'm talking to a sister at work and I'm saying, dang, why you wearing that wig? You know, you can look so much better with a natural. And she like, oh man, my hair is just it's too much to handle. It's you know, I don't like doing all that. So I'm like, but you can just, you know, you can at least comb it. You know, all you gotta do is comb it. You got a nice natural there. And she's like, I'd rather wear this wig. I ain't gotta go through all that work. And I said, but look, you covering up who you really are with that. Like, look, I can do what I want to with my hair. Blah, blah, blah. She's dependent upon the system for her cosmetic beauty. That's dependency. You battled me on why you should still be dependent upon a specific system. So you don't mind overtly and blatantly being a part of the system or being a part of his ways. If I told you right now, you know, just stop going. Another scenario. Most of the things, just like the brother was talking about earlier, you know, the clothes that we buy, the shoes that we wear, we are dependent upon places like Foot Locker, places like Champs, all these places, you know, to buy the jerseys, we buy the Jordans, we buy all these things, the Air Force Ones. Imagine they shut them down too. What will we do? What would be the first thing we would have? That group, that subculture of African descent would have no idea what to do. Okay? It's too many that I've seen from black-owned cultural clothes that we can buy. Even if it's not, you don't have to buy a dashiki or a kente cloth. It could be a T-shirt. You know, you got the brother and sister of Nubia Apparel they don't have right, and they're cultural. You don't have to buy their stuff, but mentally we're so dependent upon them for everything. It's like you don't know how to break the chain in your mind.
Right.
It's something. And their clothes are reasonable compared to what you see in the malls. You know, imagine we would. The thing is, it shouldn't have to be to a point. The point I'm making is that it shouldn't have to be to a point where if they was to shut down for a specific reason, that they shut down on their own. We should be the ones to help them shut down. Okay? Mm-hmm. If we just all of a sudden, just to take it to a bigger level, they make most of their money off of us in the entertainment industry. I'm just going to say sports. Right. Most from basketball to football. At one point it was baseball. Matter of fact, I'm going to get into that as well. But you take football, most of them, if you took all of the people of African descent out of football right now, the league would shut down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. First of all, no one would even. Let's just say if you took all of us out of there and you replaced them with white people, no one would watch it anymore.
No,
most of the attractions that you see in sports or in in football particularly, are people of African descent. All of them are. Remember at one point a decade ago it was Mike Vick. Now it's Adrian Peterson. These are attractions. It's like circus attractions. It's like you pay your money, you go to see a certain thing take place, a certain performance take place. That's who you're paying to see. From every race goes to go see a certain person of African descent in their sport to watch. Imagine that person woke up and say, you know what, to hell with this. We're not going to keep becoming your black buck and working for you as a slave anymore for this system. Their system was shut down immediately. They know this. Okay? You could take basketball. Again, the biggest attraction at one point was Michael Jordan. Before that was, the Magic Johnsons. It was fast forward right now, you got the Kobe Bryants and you have the LeBron James. Okay? If they were to leave and say, you know what, we need to come together and make our own league, their league was the NBA was shut down completely. All of the people of African descent were to leave the NBA because the 75 to 80% of that league is of African descent. Just think about that for a second.
True.
If you were to pull them out right now, or they will pull themselves out, if someone were to come to them and say, you know what, brother, back in the 1920s and 30s, we had the most economic power you could ever imagine. And we had not just one Negro league, we had several Negro leagues in football and baseball, okay? We were making money and we were competing with their leagues. But let's go back to where we are right now. If these brothers were to come back and say, okay, you know what, I'm not working for this man no more. I'm tired of whenever I get hurt, you cut me and I'm forced to retire, and in the next 5 years I'm broke.
Right.
I mean, it was a study that came out, and I had to do my own research, that at least 90% of African descent athletes, they're broke by the next 5 years. And they allow that. This is something that, because the dependency is gone. We're used to being dependent upon that system, and once you mentally, because you've never stopped being a slave. That's why it's called mental slavery. Mental slavery, the whole point of mental slavery is you're dependent upon a specific system. And not just the system, you're dependent because the system is set up from a specific individual. And individuals, not just because you got to realize the individuals that came together and created a specific system are families. When we talk about Illuminati, we're talking about families who came together to create a system of control over the whole world's population. That's all that really means. The Illuminati, which means light bearers or holders of the light or torch bearers, are groups of families who came together and decided how they were going to control the world's population through religion and through finances. Plain and simple. It's that simple, okay? Yeah. Going back now, we're right here, right now. We talk about this all the time. I have the same conversation with brothers all the time. I say, okay, we're tired of seeing Tyler Perry buck dance and coon, okay? If we're tired of seeing Kevin Hart buck dance and coon, if we're tired of seeing all you brothers and sisters buck dance and coon and smile and Tom in front of this camera on an entertainment level, okay, the first thing we can do is stop looking at it. True. Is turn the damn thing off. That's the first thing you can do. Turn the damn thing off, okay? If you're tired of seeing it, because this is what you see now, you got to realize we've regressed in the entertainment system, in the industry. We have regressed, and we have went back into a whole different, not even a whole different, but we've literally went back into a whole different type of look now. And I keep saying different, but it's the reality that we went back into almost vaudeville. Everyone here should know what vaudeville is. Okay, like the blackface. Okay, right. Realize if you're looking at TV right now, all the channels you see, cable, regular TV, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we don't have very many black shows anymore.
We don't.
If I was to name black shows I would be going off of one hand right now. And if I was to divide those black shows into positive black images for our children, because that's what it comes down to. The most important thing right now is our children, not me, not you, the children. If I was to go into what has a positive effect on our kids right now, none of them. I can't name anything. I can't name anything right now. It's ridiculous. Go ahead. No, that's the reality. We have to get to a point where we were forced over the years now, if we wanted to act and crack jokes, we had to assimilate ourselves into his system completely. Okay? That has to be a reality for ourselves. We have to realize and overstand that we became responsible, or we gave the responsibility of images to the beast, to the Caucasoid, or Caucasian. We have given them the power over our etheric cord to just the physical level, to the images of African descent that we see on TV. We gave him the responsibility. Instead of us coming together and saying, you know what, I liked watching movies, I like watching shows like The Cosby Show. We need more Cosby shows. Okay?
Yeah, you're right.
But there was very few people who came together and said, okay, we need to do that. Very few people. I'm going to give you a perfect example. And this is from our good brother, Professor Griff, because he knew about this because he was in the industry. You had the brothers, the Gotti brothers, Irv Gotti and his brother, and then you had the brother Jay Prince from Rap-A-Lot that wanted to come together and start their own music company. Not just a music company, not just a record company, but a black-owned distribution company where we're responsible for our own images.
Beautiful.
Because think about it, the images that we see of ourselves are ugly, from homosexuality to women half naked all day on TV, from MTV on down. MTV can make you look like anything they want to because they have power financially over you. Well, the reality, we gave them that power. But there was a point where they wanted to come together and control our distribution. And somebody decided to go and snitch to the enemy and tear that down. That is speculation as to who that was. He said Jay-Z. We don't know that for a fact, but he said that was the person who made that. Made that snitch move to the enemy and foiled their plans. That's why you saw the Gotti brothers become arrested and all those other things and turn into a public trial. And then you went into Jay Prince. He got extorted. Most of their record companies were destroyed financially. Now it's stifled. Matter of fact, Damon Dash was the one that was also responsible. Not responsible, but he wanted to come together with the Gotti brothers and Jay Prince from Rap-A-Lot. And you see where he is right now. Notice all three of them are damn near broke. Not to, completely, but all three of them, from Jay Prince to Irv Gotti to Dame Dash, had money. They were rich. And they all went through situations where they were literally stifled financially.
Yeah. From
the enemy. They knew exactly how to go in there and raid their offices, and next thing you know, you see the Gotti brothers on trial for something ridiculously stupid, and it was crazy. All these things happened systematically, and if you notice, they all happened around the same time. It was right around that same era, from 2004 to 2005, continuously. Just do your research and realize everything that happened with them, those four individuals, from Dame Dash to Jay Prince to the Gotti brothers, all of their problems financially started around the same time. Okay? The problem is we are not coming together financially to make sure that what we see, before I leave the entertainment industry, we have to be responsible for what we see. That's why I said the first thing we need to do is turn off the TV, okay, and not feed the machine. Because the more we watch bullshit, the more bullshit will exist.
Right.
That's reality. Unless you stop feeding something, if you stop feeding something, it's gonna die. It's like a plant. If you keep feeding the Little Shop of Horrors, it's gonna keep eating people. But the moment you stop, it's gonna be a problem. It's like, okay, what's up? Where the food at? And eventually, it's gonna either feed at you according to the story, or it's gonna die off. A regular plant, the reality is, if you ain't feeding that plant, it's gonna die. Anything that's not being fed, not getting nourished, is going to die. The system is getting nourished systematically. As I'm teaching this class, every part of that system is being financially supported by people of African descent. If you walk into Walmart right now and you sit there and count and just divide it up, all the races of people in those different factions, most of the people you see in there are us.
Yeah.
You can go into the good neighborhoods of Houston, Texas. You see a good amount of whites. They know exactly where to go. As the old saying goes, if you want good produce, go to the white neighborhoods. You go into not even say but let's just say you go into the Asian community. If you notice, the Asian community, they don't really shop at places like Walmart too much, do they?
No.
Think about that. If you think about it in your mind, they don't really go into places like Walmart, knockoff, places like Pathmark and Fiesta and places like that. They don't shop at supermarkets like that. You know why? Because they shop with they self. They shop with self. Right. They go straight into places like, Chinatown. They go to their places, okay? People who look like them, they shop with them.
Right.
If they want produce, they go to their own farms.
Right.
They are economically empowered. Right now in Houston, Texas, if I drove down Bel Air Boulevard, I drove all the way down. Let's say you leave 59 and you go into the Beltway, and you drive all the way down, straight down Bel Air, all you're going to see that's why you have something that's called the International District. Because in that district, you see nothing but Asian communities. And within that Asian community, you have financial power. They don't have to leave their areas for anything. Because right around the corner is Walmart. On the Beltway in Beechnut is Walmart. We all know that, okay, who lives in Houston. They don't have to make that corner turn to Walmart. You know why? Because they are dependent upon self completely. The whole
and that's something that we need to do.
Exactly. The whole thing is that it's not so much about a bunch of niggas coming together and talking. The whole thing is about it may be specific factions with the same idea. If we all have the same idea, then we can work, even if it's five brothers that says, you know what, man, because a lot of the financial power we had back in the early from the 1890s down to the 1930s was because a group of brothers came together and said, we got to solve our own problems. Because we were forced to. You got to realize we're going through Jim Crow laws where they wouldn't even give us a job to save our life. So we were forced to do for self, okay? The thing is, now there's no Jim Crow laws. They still deny us jobs, but it's not to a severe point where we are not allowed to get an interview, not allowed to do this. You can't get this job. They'll give you a job, but they give you a menial labor job. Okay, they'll give their secretary job to the homosexuals and to the other men and to the other women. That's the reality. You don't like what I said? That's up to you. Okay? That's truth. We all know that's truth. But when it comes to a man of African descent that has to feed his family and take care of himself and be a man and be a protector and a provider for his family, they're not giving us no jobs. Or they'll sit there and covertly give you an interview and say, don't call us, we'll call you. You have it has to be a point in your mind where you say to yourself, I'm tired of this. Okay? And it's a bunch of niggas sitting around at work, dead tired, working hard, saying, man, I'm tired of this too. Okay, we all tired. What are we gonna do about it? Ain't gonna be no. It shouldn't be no. I don't know. I don't know what we gonna. No, it better not be no. Stop talking like a slave. Okay. The first thing you're gonna do is come together with the same idea. Put the residual income you have left after paying your bills and your rent over a period of time and create your own black supermarkets. That's reality, because we can, you gotta realize the trust that we have in Walmart is heavy. So you gotta battle the slave trust in the master, because the master is Walmart, the slave is you. Okay? It's like someone coming to you saying, you don't have to work for master no more. You're so used to rubbing them against the master. It's like, no, I don't want to leave because I'm afraid. It's like 9-ball. It's a line between 6 and 9 ether, where mentally 9 ether overrules 6. And 6 is stuck at a specific point mentally. Okay? And they create what's called the myth of white supremacy, as our good sister Dr. Welsing shows, to try to show every other race of African descent that they're mentally superior to them by creating bullshit shows on TV and bullshit things on the movie industry, from movies like Iron Man and Superman and the Avengers. So he can become anything. So subconsciously we think he's a superior race of people. If you look at every movie, he's everything. My father said years ago, it's like he's everything. He can be the good guy, the bad guy, the man that gets shot, all these things.
I don't go no more.
That's why if you go, matter of fact, you look at every movie that went in with them in it, you know, mentally we're at the point of saying, okay, at what point did the black man die in this movie? I know it's going to be early, so just let me know now.
Right.
You know, take it back to Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park, black man died in like the credits, didn't he? He was gone. They got rid of him quick. Mm-hmm. Right? But the thing is, you have movies like, movies like Rocky, movies like Batman, and Rocky or Forrest Gump, where the white man rises up against the enemy and wins. You know, but if you're looking at us in those movies, we're partial to enemy because we're the dark shadow.
Right.
You know, and within their system of thinking, the dark shadow has to be dominated and has to be, at some point, it's like a David and Goliath mentality. They take that same Christian doctrine and Christian thought pattern and they apply that to what's in their movie industries. You know, just like the white knight and the black knight. The white knight always has to be the good guy, and the black knight has to be the bad guy. And you apply that same mentality to what we see on TV.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a way to instill, not just in their kids, but in our kids' mind, that still white is beautiful, powerful, all good, always wins, and the black has to always get back. That's why if they still did the doll test today, we would still be the minority of being chosen as beautiful. And it's worse. You know, it's not, because I realize the doll test was what started the Brown versus Board of Education trial. If you go back and do your research, what started Brown versus Board of Education? Some people speculate that it was an immaterial trial, but in reality, it was the doll test that was being administered to these kids. And they realized in the back of their mind, I realized Jim Crow created an inferiority complex amongst our people. You know, It wasn't segregation. Segregation within our people forced us to take care of our own responsibilities. But when you see, as a race, all of the people that don't look like you in power, eventually that's going to become internalized. You know, from the presidents to the politicians, because you realize most of the black politicians that we had in power during the 1890s to the 1910s and 20s were killed off by the Klan. A lot of people don't know during that time period that we had blacks in office, that we were voting in office. And because you got to realize the Klan was created it wasn't about killing blacks. Of course, that's what they were doing, but they were killing blacks with a purpose. Okay, that was to keep economic control and keep political control, because if they knew that if enough blacks voted, you would have more blacks in office, because we were raising up our own politicians. This wasn't a Barack Obama situation where most of us had no idea who he was until he voted. We knew who our politicians were. Just like the brother that was just elected in Detroit, that was Tupac's former lawyer. A lot of people don't know that. You know, he's homegrown created. He's homegrown raised by us. You know, those are the type of politicians that we need, because we know where their intentions are lying at. Right. If you don't know where a person's intention is, he's no different than any of the politicians. Like Barack Obama is no different than any other politician who's been in political office. Like the brother said, the GLAAD Alliance, Gay Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, put $8 million in Obama's pocket to push, and this is on record, you can do your own research, to push the gay agenda or the homosexual agenda, from the Frank Oceans to the Sean Collins of the NBA. And he made a phone call to Sean Collins to thank him for coming out. And what does that do mentally to us? To say, well, I guess it's okay. You know, it doesn't matter if a man likes being sodomized and likes doing all these things. That's because you come on here, we're gonna bring it real with you. It's a thought process, and that gets carried over to our kids. What it's saying is that it's okay to be homosexual. It's okay to walk around to be a man and have a man next to you on your arm. Okay?
Hell no.
Remember, Gay Alliance Against Defamation, Gay Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, the big child, the mother of that is the feminist movement. They are funded by the feminist movement. And the feminist movement, going back, you realize they funded the eugenics movement that was sterilizing black women for years.
Oh, yeah.
That's where they get the Planned Parenthood from. That's the original purpose of abortion, was to sterilize women of African descent. It wasn't to, okay, well, you didn't mean to be pregnant, so let's just help you and get rid of a child that you don't really need. No, they were lining up black women to kill off their womb.
Right.
But going back to what I'm talking about right now, it's different than someone coming out and saying it's you know, I'm gay or whatever, this is what I like, genetically this is who I am. But if it's a pattern, when you see a pattern, because we already know Christianity is a form of propaganda spiritually, right? Yeah, of course, it's bullshit, but it's spiritual propaganda.
Right. Because
the more you see something being pushed in your face, eventually you're gonna like it. You're gonna like it, and you're gonna think you should go to church. No matter how Afrocentric you think you are, the more you see somebody going to church, the more you see somebody carrying around a Bible and telling you God this, Jesus that, died on the cross, 3:16 crap, the more you still see that, and you think about all these quotes in your mind, and you see the athletes talk about, well, God, I want to thank God for this, and then you see these entertainment industries come out and get their, well, I want to thank God, this crap. The more times you hear that, eventually you're going to say to yourself, you know what, maybe I should go to the church. Maybe I should go and praise Jesus. Maybe I should go and praise a ghost. Okay? Even if you know in the back of your mind it's crap, and it's been feeding us crap, it's done nothing but make us bow and crawl to the white man for years, for his spiritual power, you're going to go to church. You're going to find a way to justify worshiping the white man. That's reality. And in the gay agenda right now, you're going to justify sitting there saying, if right now, this is reality right now. If you ask someone, a black Christian right now, and say, are you with gay marriage? They have no idea what to tell you. But
no.
If you but if you ask them that question 50 years ago, they'll be like, hell no. Why is it different now than it was 50 years ago?
Right.
If this wasn't really a form of propaganda against our people, because this still falls into the system of the human beast. If this is not a system of propaganda, why is it that, and not even black Christians, black people, because we still have a ideologically basic foundation in our mind, regardless of what religion we adhere to. Even if you're not profoundly or upfront Christian, you still have a certain basis in your mind from when you were growing up from your mother into your father. If you ask these people right now, how do you feel about homosexuality right now, brother and sister? Well, I'm not really against it per se, my brother. You know, it's just, you know, I feel everybody should have a chance. Really? Really? So you cool right now with two men sitting next to you, kissing each other in the mouth. You cool with that? Holding hands in your face. Obviously you are, because you placating to it. Okay, that is not a part of who we are, and it's not a part of who we are genetically.
Nope.
And I take it back to Africa, you know. And I'm sorry, I'm getting off the subject, but I got to say this: there is no evidence whatsoever of people of African descent, Africans, Nubians, Nuwaupians, men or women that naturally went against or naturally went with people of the same sex. There's no evidence of this. I'm talking on a natural basis. Now, Hatshepsut went about doing what she was doing based upon an emotional and a psychological situation she went with, dealing with a man she was with. This is back because, remember, Hatshepsut was a female pharaoh. But on a psychological level, she ended up going with a woman. It was not a natural process, okay? They try to say, like, okay, this is a natural thing. No, it becomes a natural thing over the years when you're taking it from the Ptolemy Roman invasion in ancient Egypt, when our people began to assimilate themselves with a race of people, or a Roman and Greco culture that began to defile our genes. Because if you do your research with the Roman and Greco culture, you realize they had wives, they had children, but they usually had sex with the men that they were with. That's what they preferred to do. They couldn't stand women. Okay, we worship our women. You know, in our mind, the woman is the divine feminine principle. Am I right?
Yep.
But in their culture, genetically, they hate women. They killed more women during the period of time during the Spanish Inquisition than it was in slavery. They were killing off their own women. And what they do after that? They began to love each other. You give me any point in African culture, in our story, where we do anything like that, if it's a natural process to us. Okay, I'll take it down into our bondage, into chattel slavery, into the Middle Passage. The first thing we did, even if we were on that boat, cooped up in that cellar, you didn't see two men having sex together. When they came down there and they had to clean up what we were doing to each other, I'm talking about on a personal level, when we had no other route because we were chained together. If you know and you do your research in those records, there's no record of two men during the Middle Passage coming to this country in our bondage sleeping together on a boat, if it's natural to us. But if you go into our bondage and you realize that tribes of the Mali tribes and the Sudanese tribes, the little bit that they were taken from Ghana as well, the Mandingo tribes, this is in our bondage scroll written by my father, Dr.Malachi Z.York. They were being raped by slave masters and their overseers systematically. And if you're raping someone, that means you're defiling a person's genes. This is a systematic period of time. So what's going to happen is when we're down into the fourth generation, of course you're going to have more manifestations of homosexuality of people of African descent. Okay? Again, gatekeepers, as we're teaching now, we're asexual beings. When you're asexual, that means you're non-sexual, which means that you do not have the desire to have sex.
Oh.
That's what that word, the word asexual means. Go look it up. The word asexual really just means non-sexual. That's why if you notice, when we were coming with the truth in the Black Book Part 1, Chapter 1, we were saying that woman was able to produce asexually without the aid of a mate. Okay? That's singular procreation. That's daughter cell procreation. That means it's almost like taking it because she was in a reptilian state. That's going back into the Dogon culture of the Ogbads or Pachaminu, where they were able to split and procreate from an egg or a reptilian state their child or their young. This is going back to the original form of when female was in her reptile state. Again, no homosexuality going on during the time of Nun. Okay? Going back even further. There is no evidence of men of African descent going back into our story of tribes of men having sex with each other, sodomizing each other, giving fellatio. That is not a part of who we are, okay? But, again, if we go into Roman Greco culture, they love each other. The men coming together. That's why if you see them going, that's why if you look in the entertainment industry, they don't mind making these innuendo homosexual jokes and trying to kiss each other in the mouth and doing these things. So the more we see these things, we in our mind will begin to internalize it. You have another point, and I want to make sure everyone understands this. In the prison culture, is 95% of the prison population are people of African descent. And the prison culture is created to make us more primal, but not just a primal state, to basically create a homosexual situation going on. And most of the people in the prison system are HIV positive. And it's almost like this was created as a means to experiment on these men. And this is the truth. They were actually experimenting on a lot of these men that were in the prison system, from places of Philadelphia, places of Detroit. They come out in different books and tell you that we were experimenting on black prisoners in prison for years. Okay, I went on to the subject of the homosexual agenda because this is real. This is not something that, again, this is not just one person coming out saying he's gay. You're seeing a pattern. So, again, the first people who are affected are those who don't know any better. You know, and we're all, not just the kids, we're all affected by it. That's why, we don't even know what we stand on anymore. There's no principle of our people no more. The principles are now gone. So whatever you see on TV, we're going to think everything is cool when you see it. Okay? When you see men that are homosexual, a man comes out and says he's bisexual or other stuff, what that happens is you have a form of what's called mass genocide amongst our people. That's the biggest form of mass genocide, is there's no male, females coming together having and copulating and having children. Because the more effeminized and homosexual men you have, the less childs are being born, the less children are being born. Okay? You can't justify that. Okay? You're going to see more and more men that are going to come out, or it goes just more men pushing a very feminized African male from not just. Matter of fact, that's why I talked about food earlier, because we have to be responsible for our water. There's a lot of estrogen being pumped in this water system, as well as the food that we eat. The one key point that I remember reading up on Dr. Sabi, he talked about dairy. You gotta realize African people are naturally lactose intolerant. Okay? And when you have people who are eating something that is not natural based upon their system, especially milk, cheese, eggs, you're pumping in a lot of estrogen into your system. These are men now. And what's going to happen is over a period of time, you're going to start having more feminine qualities and feminine tendencies. That's why you see a lot of emotionally unstable men now of African descent. You know, because we knew our roles. Men were physical, women were emotional. Now it's becoming a switch because there's no gender roles anymore. Gender roles have to be established. In Nuwaupu, gender roles are established. I don't care what you say. I know who I am. She knows who she is. Okay? It's not a mixture. And the human beast's system is set up to where the first people who are affected by it is people of African descent. Okay? If you can curb the amount of kids being born in our people, then you can curb the whole population of the people. We don't even have to go into the food anymore. We don't have to go into drugs. We don't have to go into AIDS. They're not having kids anymore, so what difference does it make? The kids are dying off. You know, it's not literally, but they're dying off because they're not being born anymore. When you don't have a foundation or principles, there's a reason for that. That means somebody has affected you on a covert and subliminal level for you to know who you are. The first level was spiritual. That's why you go into the church. If you notice, most of these kids or black men in the church are homosexual and feminized. You know, look at from the brother Eddie Long. You know, all these kids, if you notice, if you looked at all the kids that came out and said he did such and such to them, they were very much flaming homosexual. You know, look at them, not just listen to what he was saying or they were saying on Tom Joyner. I'm talking about look at them. These are feminized boys at young ages. And we'll have to take it to the look of them. If you go in the church, most of the men are homosexual. There's no masculine principle with it. There's no leadership. If you take away the masculine principle in the African male, there's no longer a leadership or warrior instinct. It's like taking it to the art of war. If you take away the most powerful or what is the strength of that tribe, that African tribe, you can any warring class, European class, can come in and take your women, rape them, and leave you with nothing.
Right.
Okay? Because you don't look at them as attractive anymore. You won't fight them off anymore because in your mind, you're no longer a leader, you're no longer a warrior, you're a feminized male, you don't know where you're going to turn, you're in the middle, you placate, you're passive, you're docile. That's what we are now becoming now over the years. We're becoming a docile, feminized, homosexual man. To give not a very vulgar term, but I'm going to give you man or male. That's reality now. And because the basis of who we are is gone, we are dependent upon the system. We don't even have to go into the financial level of this. Realize that we're being affected by this. All of the people of the conscious community, of the African community, African-centered community, and just the conscious community especially are seeing this. You have to see this. If you do not see this, there's going to be a problem. The big movie, I noticed a lot of blacks are giving this movie a lot of bad reviews, or After Earth, with Will Smith and his son Jaden, and they're not seeing the big picture of what Will Smith has been trying to do for years. He may not have a whole lot of power, but he did whatever he could to come up with a movie or be in a movie where you're seeing an African male and an African male child come together and bond in a time of turmoil. Whereas most of the shows or most of the movies you see where there's an African male in that movie or show, he's weak, he's a liar, he's a homosexual. Whereas in this movie, you see the exact opposite. You see strength. Huh?
She has some. I'm back.
You see strength, you see power, you see stability, and you see action, you see initiative and integrity. Those are the things. See, they want, in their system of thinking, they want us as African people of African descent, they want us to look at that movie like, oh, man, I didn't like the reviews, I ain't like this, I ain't like that, so you don't have to give that power. You know, your kids, the people who are affected, again, by this the most is the kids, our children, okay? If they're able to see this, they're able to see an image like, not even that, but take another movie that him and his son did together, Pursuit of Happiness, where you see black male, an African male, and African male child bonding together in another situation of turmoil. Okay? Images like that are necessary. You need to see African males and African male child coming together and bonding. It don't have to always be a negative situation, but they're coming together. They don't want to see African males handle responsibility, because if you see that, then our women are going to stop saying, you know, oh, man, he's a black man ain't nothing. I ain't got to go to them. I can now go to the white man. Okay? And then we're going to jump into that problem. You're seeing a lot of propaganda being pushed into the media where, you know, you having interracial dating. And the more interracial dating you have, the more defiled genes you have. Okay?
Yeah, I heard.
Because
sorry about that. I was saying I heard that Sister Kelly Rowland, she's dating a white guy. And a lot of brothers been talking about Kelly. They've been brothers been putting Kelly Rowland on top of the chart. Then Beyonce, I'm talking about as in looks, you know.
Right. Yeah. You're looking at all these different people of the industry that are buying into that propaganda because they want that. You know, the whole thing is if you take an animal that is genetically inferior, or a caveman or a dog man that's genetically inferior, that was supposed to die off 6,000 years ago, and you separate yourself from that animal, you're going to watch what happens to that animal. That animal is going to eat itself. It's going to regress. The problem is they got a hold of this system, and they created a system to where we, as a people, began to feel sorry for this animal. And so we began to, as we did in ancient Egypt, we began to bring down our laws of immigration and allow them to come in, and that began to become a mixing pot. And we're going into our bondage and slavery, and that began to become systematic rapings based on an imperialistic mentality. And we're going into now where we placate it. We're so used to it, or they push it so much on TV because we're dependent upon them for our system of thinking and our entertainment, to where that becomes the norm in our community, where we didn't touch other tribes of people. We stayed with our own. The thing is, we knew who the enemy was years ago. Now we have no idea who the enemy is anymore. Matter of fact, we think the enemy is a person who looks like you. If he looks like me, he got to be somebody who's going to try to steal from me, rob from me, take my woman. That's a fact. That's a reality. We don't like to accept that fact, but the bottom line is we don't trust our own. So when we're trying to take down a system financially, there's no way for us to start, because automatically we're already in that system of thinking where we want to be dependent upon the beast for everything on any level. There's no way in the world that the devil is not controlling your mind. You have to be able to break the chain. If you can see what's going on in front of you, then you can push it and say, I'm not going to be controlled by this. It takes, first of all, it takes an amount of respect for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The first level of respect. And to no longer disrespect yourself by watching images of self that is not funny. The thing is, we have to get to a point where every other race looks at us as inferior. So that inferiority translates into laughter and buffoonism. You know, there's been years of propaganda, because the media, the system of the media is a form of propaganda, and the biggest jokes of that system is the African male and female.
Yep. Relationship-wise, yeah.
Say it again.
I said relationship-wise, it is. I mean, every time you watch any form of entertainment, when it has something to do with a relationship, notice that it always has a black woman who's talking flipped to a black man. She's basically belittling him. Sometimes he falls for it. Sometimes he he does something else than us. If you notice, the thug is in. You know, it's far from, even though Tupac was detrimental to the game. It's not even as worse as Tupac's thugness. It's all this southern stuff. You notice the southern black man is actually the representation of how the black man is. First, he can't talk plain English. Then he's broke. He's dusty, basically much. And this is the guy who's representing for all our children. Like example, Lil Wayne, Rick Ross, Plies, Rick Ross, Lil Wayne, all these guys. Notice they have somewhat of a southern attitude, and I think they're trying to make them the new rednecks. Because everybody used to say how dumb rednecks were. Now they're going to how dumb blacks are, but this time they're going to the South, so they're going to the lowest breeds of black that you can actually possibly find in the media today.
Right.
And
because
like Wayne Brady, I'm talking about that, a guy like Wayne Brady, who's as very much intelligent, and he has to call Bill Maher out on dissing him. And I like how he handled the situation, but at the same time, he just said this. He said, "I can be, Wayne Brady, the guy you all know and love, or I can be that black guy."
Yeah, because the reality of it is, in this industry, they have the power of what, regardless of what race you are, to get the people to love you or hate you. That's propaganda. They can get people to love you or hate you. And that's the perfect example, of course, is my father. They, at one point, people was loving him in the conscious community. Once charges and trumped up charges come out against them, people began to hate him.
Right.
That's propaganda. That's the biggest form of propaganda, is I can get a group of people to no longer love you, to no longer respect you as a man.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line, man. We can't. It comes down to this. I'm talking about a problem now. I'm coming to the solution. It comes down to factions, and within those factions, you have individuals. Then those individuals, they come together to say we got to get our deals met. We got to get our problems met, our demands met, and we have to come together to solve our own problems.
Right.
And the way to do that is to have the same ideas. If we all have the same ideas, that means that when it comes down to our problems, they can be solved by us and us alone. Again, if we go back to, talking about the whole Illuminati thing, these are people these are nothing but families who came together to take over a whole world in any way, shape, or form you can think about it. Religion, finances, etc. Okay? The way we solve that problem is to recognize the problem that happens, and we come together and say we're going to be the ones to push that back and be responsible in our own community to uplift our community. Even if it's only 5 or 6 brothers coming together, it's financial backing. The first thing is finances. That means at the end of the day, you have checks and balances, things that have to be accounted for. If you're just giving somebody money, then that person can do whatever they want to with your money and you won't ever see it again. But if it's people who are coming together, at least they may not be at the same financial level on all levels, but at the end of the day, we're coming together and we're making each other responsible to solve our problems. Okay? We're too late in the game in this moment in time of 2013 in the AH level of time where we couldn't be able to come together. We have all these ways that we can come together in the society. All we have to do is to no longer have an arrogant mentality to where we can't work with other factions. If these factions are solving the problems of the community, and we still have problems in our community, then what we need to do is, if there's an African faction that is knowing how to solve their problems and having their own farm system, their own crop system. And what we need to do as relatives of them, because all we are relatives of each other. We may not be in the same organizations, but we are relatives of each other because we all have the same problems. Okay? When whites were not consolidated, they were groups from the Italians to the Jews to the Irish of the early centuries that first came into, the certain immigrants that came into the United States. They had problems financially. But once they began to consolidate, they were able to solve their own problems. And they began to create what's called the white community. When you fast forward to now, we have problems in the black community. Until the factions, the African-centered factions, come together and solve their problems, we're going to still have the same problems because the factions are separate from each other. We can do this. All we have to do is let go and uproot the ego. Once we uproot the ego, we can solve our problems. We can no longer look at ourselves as being separate from each other.
As well as in the Mind Scroll.
Say again?
I said that was also in the Family Guide and in the Mind Scroll.
Exactly, brother. Exactly.
I had a quick question about the ignorance and elaborate on how the brother is. Now, I do know some of this most black organizations are having the same ideas that they need to link up together. I mean, you have cases where, let's say, what's the brother of the Nation of Islam, not Elijah Muhammad, the brother Farrakhan did some things with Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. But do you think some of this arrogance can come towards as religion-wise? The reason why most people hadn't came together because, well, hey, I believe in this and I believe in that. Because, example, let's sit here and say there was something going on in the same black community that involved the Nuwaupians and the Israel. What's the brothers called?
Hebrew Israelites.
Hebrew Israelites.
Yeah.
Now, we'll say from what I'm hearing, like, let's say something that happened to both of us, we can all come together and we can do something. But you think they will possibly come together with us towards the better of the community, even though we believe in two totally different things, or we are two totally different things?
Yes, they will. They will. I've already made talks with them myself, and the reality is nothing but a label. It's nothing but a label walking around on our foreheads, saying that I'm the Nuwaupian, he's Nation of Islam, he's 5%, he's more Science Simple, he's this and that and this and that, and those labels they just put us in corners away from each other.
Okay,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'll say, but are our tactfulness and tactics are different? I'll say from both organizations.
The differences can compensate for each other. Because all we gotta do is sit down and talk. If we learn to sit down and talk, the differences are not going to make that much of a problem. It's not going to make a difference anymore. You might have a lot of times when you have differences, the differences equate into ego again. If you really think about it, most of the differences that we have with the Nation of Islam and Pan-African groups is the ego. Most of the time, and this is not indicative of every Nuwaupian, most of the people are saying, well, our doctrine's better. Well, your doctrine might be better, but you're at a financial situation beneath them. You don't have your own land anymore. You don't have your own this. You don't have your own that. So what you can do is realize those of those groups are willing to learn from us. They're willing to learn from us. All we have to do is come together with them. We have a doctrine, we have the actual facts, we have Patrak, etc. But we have to come to them because we realize every organization can compensate for the weaknesses that we have within each other. You know what I'm saying? If every organization came together, I have to say this, if every organization comes together, every organization has strengths and weaknesses. That's reality. Accept that. You know what I'm saying? Put the ego to the side and accept that. If every one of them came together and say, well, look, I can bring this, You can bring that. I may not be able, because think about it. The biggest problem within the black community right now is kids being shot in the street. Not just Trayvon Martin, but we can't control what's going on with our kids anymore. Cops can shoot us down whenever they feel like it. You know, the doctrine is not. You can't defend something with a book. But what you can do is you can use right knowledge and realize that we need a group that's going to protect our families. That's right knowledge. That's not placating to anybody, to any organization. That's right knowledge. If you don't have anything in place to, to protect your people, because you realize the Panthers are still around. They just in hiding on the underground level. And you still have the new Black Panther groups. These people were created because you have to realize at a point after the Civil Rights Movement, they can no longer control us, you know, based on Jim Crow law, so they had to push the cops in there to basically destroy us again. They had to literally try to find ways to control the black community in any way, shape, and form. So going back to now, we have to come together and realize that we have to put every problem we have on the table. And we have to say, okay, there has to be solutions to those problems. We are the most intelligent people on the planet if we begin to use our intelligence. That's all we got to do. All we got to do is say, well, look, this is a problem we have right now. How do we solve it? It ain't about us using big, huge words. It's about being very simple with our tactics. Because we have to accept the fact that there's a war going on against people of African descent and against melanated people of this world. Not just of this country, but against this world.
Right.
And once we begin to be more responsible for what happens to each other, we're not going to have very many problems. We can solve our problems one by one if we, again, uproot the ego, get rid of the arrogance, and we begin to see things for what they are and begin to listen to each other and see what we have to say. So I don't think the doctrine is really that big of a deal. It just comes down to us just saying, well, look, I'm ready to solve the problems. What can I do?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's it. You know, the system will fall once we allow it to fall. Once we fall back and say, look, you know, hey, we have in our communities, in the ghettos, we have African shops and African stores and African restaurants. Why don't we go there? You don't have to go to Chinese restaurants and McDonald's and Burger King and all other places and feed their world. We can go right down the street to them. And guess what? You know, we might look at Africans, man, they're arrogant, they don't like us, this and that, this and that. The more you see them, the more they see you, is the more you'll see them. Okay?
True.
Within going to the different businesses that they have, we have to be able to go in there and politic with them and talk to them and listen to what they have to say. And find out, okay, man, you came here and you got currency. You came straight from Nigeria or Ghana or Senegal, and they got currency just like that. How'd you do that? What happened? You know, it's just talks. It ain't about religion. It's about talking. You know, put the religion to the side for a second. Put the label on the shelf and start speaking to your own people again. Don't be afraid to talk to them. The thing is that whites created a plan to separate Africans born in America and Africans born in the continent to where they can't come together and solve their problems. Because the deeper level is having not just group economics within our country, but not our country, within this country, but being able to connect with those of Africa on the next continent, which is dual citizenship. You know, it's something that...
No, I was just elaborating. I was just saying, you know, most other races do the same thing. I mean, you see, here at the school, you know, we got Hispanics from different islands. You got some from Mexico, you got some from Honduras, you got some from, you know, Puerto Rico, Guatemala, you know, El Salvador, and they hang around amongst themselves. You know, they're different. They're from different parts. And you know, I was talking to somebody here. You know, they had the same. We had the same thing like we did for years. We have brothers who come from, let's say, these same places. Like Dominican Republican. You know, I used to always have big debates. People say, well, hey, that dark skinned guy. I'm like, okay, he's African. He's like, nah, he's from Dominican. I said, how you think he's from Dominican? Well, he's from there. You know, it's not that's who he is. I said, that's nationality, bro. I said, nationality is just where you came from. Like, can I sit here and say that, okay, I'm not black, I'm American? Does that really make sense? They're like, no, you just been born here. So my brother right there, he had the same experience as me, as my ancestors did. We were brought over here to a place that we belong to, and now we're part of that system because we're mentally, physically, and spiritually told we're supposed to be. So when I look at a brother like that, I look at a brother who just knows Spanish and who's from a different culture, but even out of all these cultures, he has a little bit of African inside him. Because one thing we love to do, we love to dance. We have similar traits. Just
no, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
As I used to tell brothers, like in Brazil, they said, capoeira is a Brazilian martial arts. I said, no, that's an African martial arts, bro. You do your history, you find out they used that against the slave masters. They had this guy dance into a martial arts. So when I'm doing that, I'm actually realigning myself with my own culture.
Right. Because just think about it. You know, we can have accounts of slave revolts like we talked about with the Black Seminoles last year, but, you know, in the United States. But imagine how many slave revolts there was in South America and Brazil, because that's the second largest population of African people other than the continent.
Right.
You know, so, yeah, you are right. I mean, just take the Moore Science Temple. Moore Science Temple has an idea, because you got to realize Africans born in America have no actual status at all. There's no status for us. You know, since the Constitution was set up, we weren't included in that. So if we were included in that as all people created equal, as it said, we would have status by this time. There's no actual status for African people born in America, for Nubians, whatever term makes you feel important. There's no status for us. And because you have no status and you have no political power, you have no say-so, you have no backing, you have nothing. So they can, in their mind, do what they want to with us. But within the Moore Science Temple, the idea of sovereignty is important, because you have now gained back your own status. Okay? You may not have to join the Moore Science Temple, but you have your own status. You know, you now are becoming in control of your name, and being in control of who you are, it means you become completely self-governed. But as long as we are allowing others to define our status, we're going to have a problem. So once we become completely sovereign and completely self-dependent, then we're going to start becoming more and more in control of ourselves and our finances and our community. So I can look at that as an example, because we were all working on that several years ago, and I think we still are working on that right now. I'm using that as an example. And you take, and I'm naming all of them right now, you take the Pan-African groups that have the Marcus Garvey mentality, in which we all are having the same mentality now. We just have to combine with them and talk to them. You know, this is the reality. Realize they have the mentality of what's called dual citizenship. A lot of us who claim to be so important and so intelligent or have all this intellectual information still have no idea what dual citizenship is. What we have to do, and do the same thing we did when we are Freemasons, is, you know, even if you're coming to the Prince Hall Masons, you're studying under Prince Hall Masons to realize how you have to conduct yourself in a lodge. The same thing if you're dealing with the Pan-African information is you have to study and you have to learn from these people, because we're ignorant on these certain levels. You're supposed to come together with these factions and learn from them on how we can be people of dual citizenship. That's all it takes. It's, again, uprooting the ego one more time and getting rid of that idea that we have to be separate and my doctrine is better than your doctrine, and it's a whole bunch of crap going on and we still not solving our problems. So these are ideas of how we can get away from the system of the human beast. And all it comes down to is unification and love. The first thing we have is a love for self. The second thing we have to have is unification of self and having the same ideas. Then we can solve our own problems. Because we still have problems going on, they will no longer be problems, because every other race in this United States they don't have the problems we have. Our problems are on full blast. And we have to be the ones to no longer be on full blast no more. We can police the buffoonery in our own religion. I mean, and not religion, but in our own tribe. When you see coons, when you see overt coons, we have to police overt coons, because you have to put energy out there in order for you to be a coon. That's an act. You know, we have to be the ones that's responsible for these things.
Question real quick. What do you think the reason why guys like Flavor Flav, I'm just putting him out there, I'm not saying he's actually just one of them, but let's say Flavor Flav, Kevin Hart, some of Tyler Perry, some of these guys who are out here, acting silly, are we have to give them more power for them to do what they do, or is it just the media who's actually giving them more power? I'm talking like example, the ratings. We used to watch a lot of black shows, watch a lot of stand-up comics like these guys right here. Are we giving them power, or is the media giving them power?
Well, the media, it's both levels. The media gives them power based upon payment. They pay them, and they give them platform, and we give them power by watching it. So it's a double-edged sword we're having to deal with. The more times he gets a job, and he gets support, and the whole world is able to see him act out what he's doing. Then you take the next side of us is we're giving it ratings because we're watching it. And the more times we're watching it, the more power we give it. You understand? So on both sides, the one side we really can't control. The only thing we can control is on a deeper level is we get to those of our race and we get to them that are buffooning themselves, and we get them to stop doing that. Because if you come out with shows in the other races of people that buffoon their race, they don't support that at all. They don't. They don't watch them. They don't watch them. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Whereas with blacks, we embrace ignorance too much. Yeah. We have to stop that. We have to either eliminate these people or we have to get with these people and get them to stop doing that, because we have to teach them how psychologically damaging that is to your own. And then that's a problem that can be solved. It might sound far-fetched to a lot of people, but this is something they can do, because you got to realize other races of people, they don't play that. They will approach you, and whites or Italians, they'll come to them if you you look at the Jersey Shore, they come to them and be like, you need to take this show off the air. I don't like seeing my people look like this. The niggas can look like that, but not us. They don't play with that. Well, us, we're so used to performing for years. You realize the first form of entertainment was blackface, was buck dance, it was cooning. Since the 1830s. Do your research.
That was stuff.
The first form of it was cooning. The first form of American entertainment was black people acting damn fool in front of whites. Do your research. Put minstrel show in, and they'll give you, go on Wikipedia, put minstrel show in, you'll see it goes back to the 1830s when, in order for us to not get our ass whooped by belts or whips or whatever, and to make whites happy, we created a form of dance for them. And we're laughing and we're giggling and all other things. And that took away the hatred. So that has to be known. And the thing is, once you know something, you become responsible for the information.